Recording on. I didn't hear the voice on my screen, so better make sure. Thank you, everyone. And it's so lovely to see so many people since yesterday. And this World Congress is close to all of our hearts, I'm sure. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. It is such a great honor and pleasure for me to be presenting at our 24th Viktor Frankl Institute of Logotherapy World Congress. Um, I have to say that um, I'm presenting this information on attitude, and there are a couple of things in my life at the present moment that makes it so important and so significant to the topic, um, and also all the presentations that I've heard so far all link up. So I I would like to ask before I begin for your prayers because my father is extremely ill in hospital, and after this presentation I will be going down to see him. All my family are there, so I ask you all for your prayers. He's 92 years old. He's a tough man, and if anybody has ever had an attitude that is positive and an attitude of integrity, it has been my father. So I just wanted to say that. And so I'd like to dedicate this to my father, and I'd like to also dedicate this presentation to my husband, who showed over the 25 years that I've known him great courage, and because he's also had many, many challenges to face. So these are all very important things to me in my search for meaning and in my research, and what I have gleaned from what attitude means. So thank you for your indulgence. I'll be presenting today what I have then found and what I have learned from my research and experience on the role that attitude plays in our understanding of logos, and subsequently our lives that give our existence a sense of meaning and purpose. This is not an exhaustive discussion, as this topic is wide and deeply complex, that links the mind, body, and spirit. However, I hope to provide you with some information that might elicit curiosity and further investigation. I'm hoping that I will be able to share some information with you with regards to the topic of attitude, with the learning objectives of gaining a deeper understanding of attitude and the link between attitude and meaning, as well as a deeper perspective on the role of attitude in accepting the values of others without relinquishing our own. I believe that this learning is imperative to building genuine and authentic bridges to develop an attitude of collaboration and reciprocity instead of competition, victimization, and personal gain at any cost, not just globally, but also with and in our own personal relationships. I would like to draw your attention, to begin with, for a moment, to what makes up the international symbol for the Viktor Frankl Institute of Logotherapy. This is because I believe that it gives a summary of the word logos, and logos is the core of our attitude. We see the boat, which is the Greek symbol for wisdom, and the oil lamp, which is the Hebrew symbol for eternity. However, what comes into focus is that together, these create the word Logos, logos, which is at the heart of our individual as well as global search for meaning and purpose. Logos is then that which is within us. What stands out in the symbol is the word logos, but what extends that importance is that it is superimposed on the globe, on our global family. What it seems to impress is that logos is at the heart of our individual as well as global search for meaning and purpose. Logos is then that which is within us, What is within us then is the defiant power of the human spirit that, if we choose, will empower us to know the eternal wisdom that we have the freedom to take responsibility, to experience the power of our own freedom. Frankl believed in what he called the last of human freedoms, the ultimate freedom to choose our attitude. Although we are not always in control of the conditions or situations that confront us, the important thing is that we can choose how we respond. He said that the one thing you can take away from me, that you cannot take away from me, is the way I choose to respond to what you do to me. The last of one's freedom is to choose one's attitude in any given circumstance. According to Frankl, this is not only our right as human beings, but also our full human beingness and potential to be free in this manner. In his book, Prisoners of Our Thoughts, Viktor Frankl's Principles for Discovering Meaning in Life and Work, Alex Patakos discusses the importance of resisting the temptation to remain prisoners of our thoughts and to choose this freedom no matter what. He reminds us that life is never made unbearable by circumstances, but only by lack of meaning and purpose. We cannot become victims of our circumstance, nor make others feel sorry for us. This is self-serving and for selfish gain, or to soothe our own fears and anxiety. In doing so, we avoid taking responsibility for our own attitudes and actions or inactions. To me, this speaks to the vital significance of our awareness of our attitudinal stance to the events in our lives, past, present, and future. Throughout our lives, we are psychologically and emotionally conditioned by what we experience. This conditioning creates our sense of being within a given environment, which in turn provides a structure from which we respond to life's events and our relationship to others, and that to ourselves and that to others. A key root of our negative experiences and suffering through which we view and respond the world may be reduced to one or a combination of three universal fears, which are a fear of abandonment and rejection, our fear of low self-worth or unworthiness, and our fear of trusting ourselves and our own abilities and others. And I take this from my studies in attachment theory, but we won't go into that. Just a bit of a summary of part of that theory. So logos then, in other words, meaning, brings together that which should come together in life. Viktor Frankl defined meaning as truth, beauty, goodness, love, rightness, striving to live a life of genuineness and authenticity. Logos embodied in attitude seems then to be our orientation toward the highest value of our existence, which is love. In his book, Man's Search for Meaning, Frankl states, "A thought transfixed me for the first time in my life. I saw the truth as it is set into song by so many poets, proclaimed as the final wisdom by so many thinkers. The truth that love is the ultimate and the highest goal to which man can aspire. Then I grasped the meaning of the greatest secret that human poetry and human thought and belief have to impart. The salvation of man is through love and in love." And I believe that logotherapy is then love in action. Taking responsibility to do what we ought to is to create the bonds that binds us together in race, culture, religion, and faith. Frankl says, our greatest freedom is the freedom to choose our attitude. We are each endowed with a defiant human spirit, the determination to live no matter what life throws at us. We do not need to learn this, as it is within us. I believe that the search for meaning is as inherent in us as it is to an instinct to survive. Our task is to learn of it and to uncover or recover it. We can only teach it to others then by recovering it and living it in our own lives by example. The survival mechanism and the most reliable tool in our logotherapeutic medicine chest then is our innate primary motivation to search for meaning, compelled by the defiant power of the human spirit, to answer life's questions as each is presented to us daily and moment by moment. This is contained within the highest value of love and truth, driven by the key tool in our existential toolbox, our attitude. Frankl teaches that we can find meaning through work. And as one of my favorite Persian philosophers, Khalil Gibran, says so beautifully, that work is love made visible. It's about connecting to something greater than the task at hand. Taking action is the first path to finding meaning in life. We can discover our life's purpose through the deeds we perform or the things we create and the work that we do. Another path to finding meaning is love. In any context, love. These experiences, such as beauty, truth, authenticity, goodness, nature, or culture, or even experiencing other humans in their beautiful individuality and seeing and appreciating their great potentials, can help us find meaning in our lives. A third path to finding meaning is through our attitude. It is how we choose to respond to a situation that we are able to find meaning, taking responsibility to do the task that ought to be done, and to know that everything can be taken from a man, but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances. If we then consider these main paths to finding meaning, we will see that the core of any of them is that of attitude. What attitude do you take to your work? What attitude do you take to your relationships? And what attitude do you take to your responsibilities in life, no matter what life presents to you? Frankl reminds us then, between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. And our greatest freedom is the freedom to choose our attitude as we contemplate our response. The pillars that logotherapy rests upon are freedom and responsibility, taking responsibility for our life and doing what we ought to do in order to make sense of our existence. In other words, becoming aware of a sense of meaning and purpose in our life. How we act, our behavior is evidence of our beliefs and our attitudes more than is what we say. Logotherapy espouses the belief that it is not what we experience that determines our quality of life, but our attitude towards our experiences, which incidentally is where meaning can be found. Logotherapy has a unique perception of what it means to be human and its philosophy of life, the way we see ourselves and the attitude we choose towards life strongly impacts how we trust and treat ourselves and others. Frankl states that whatever and whenever we suffer No matter what the severity of our suffering is, we have the ability to find meaning in that situation. Although we are not always in control of the conditions or situations that confront us, we can choose how we respond through how we think about what we are being confronted with. In other words, our choice of attitude. Thus building courage and resilience to resist the temptation of becoming and or remaining victims and prisoners of our thoughts, and choose this freedom no matter what. What does this mean? In the logotherapeutic sense of meaning, it is our own unique sense of meaning. Simply, it is the value of knowing that you are always free to take responsibility, but never free from taking responsibility. Freedom then begins with attitude. We begin to think of attitude by examining the deeper dimensions of self-transcendence and our sense of meaning, purpose, and our ability to respond to life's questions and challenges. In my search of where to begin to understand attitude, it seems that attitude shapes our lives one way or the other, whether we like it or not. In the process to change our lives for the better, it is vital that we transcend beyond each stage that we encounter while on this journey of change and becoming decent human beings. This is the challenge we must face and go beyond the next stage. I have come to understand that I need to transcend beyond the conditioning of my own negative experiences and my own fears to come to the awareness of my relationship with myself and that with others. The quality of my relationships springs from how I feel within me about myself and therefore about others. In other words, my attitude and my sense of meaning and purpose. Through the process of transcending beyond my own pain and suffering, I am then able to transcend beyond myself to connect with others with compassion. We can reshape the pattern of our thinking, and I believe that we can reshape the patterns of thinking. As we journey through life, we encounter and experience events that cause us various levels of suffering and pain. Growth is painful. Change is painful. Growth takes you out of your comfort zone in order for you to continue through the next level. Through our own search for meaning, we can unfreeze ourselves from our conditional and our conditioned attitudes. Only in this way can we truly experience transcendence beyond our own pain and suffering and make connections with others with compassion. Every moment in life is a once-in-a-lifetime invitation to fully experience life. We have unique tasks to perform, and we are responsible for shaping our own lives by our decisions and choices to action. Logotherapy, then, is an action-oriented practice, and we can't get away from doing the work. With the philosophy based on the idea that we are strongly motivated to find meaning in our lives, we discover that the result of knowing and understanding that we are free to take responsibility and not free from responsibility. In other words, knowing that we have the freedom to choose our attitudes will set us on the path to finding meaning and purpose. In conclusion, then, in order to understand attitude, it is vital to understand our own beliefs and that how we think, feel, and act are manifestations of our attitudes. The link between attitude and meaning, then, rests with our awareness of our own self, our own life experiences, especially overcoming our negative life experiences that cause us to have fears of abandonment and rejection, of low self-worth, and a lack of trust in our own abilities and trust in others. The role of attitude is vital in self-growth and self-transcendence, which helps us to build the strength and compassion for ourselves and others. It is an important element in learning to accept the values of others without relinquishing our own values and sense of meaning. If I believe that this learning is imperative, which I believe from the bottom of my heart that this learning is imperative to building genuine and authentic bridges to develop an attitude of collaboration and reciprocity instead of competition, victimization, and personal gain at any cost, not just globally, but also with and in our own personal relationships. I feel that if our global family can understand attitude and self-transcendence and how they link up and our human, that divine spirit that each and every one of us has within us, we will know what love is. And we will break down these barriers and boundaries to just be one big family that has a meaning and purpose. Thank you so much for your indulgence and listening to me.
Thank you so much, Doreen, for your presentation. And I know that you are open to taking questions, so I'm extending this invitation to all attendees. Please feel free to ask questions or just share your observations or remarks. And you can do so in the chat, then I will read it out, or you can just unmute yourself and speak directly. Hey. Hey, is there anything you wanna maybe share?
I would like to share, if you don't mind, Sabina.
Sorry?
I would like to share. This is to say, asking to Dr. Doreen, because it's a big inspiration. It's a big inspiration to hear and listen her, because I can perceive the passions and the how shared is this concept, Viktor Frankl concept, but it's about life. And I really appreciate how I can perceive how the personal life to be is so great to have this experience in our journey because for me was my mentor, is my and I'm very pleased how Doreen talk about with the heart, but the knowledge and that experience. Let me remember, Doreen, how long are you study and shares about Viktor Frankl journey, because is I can perceive that how is it's like you have this very connecting in this personal way.
Thank you, Nancy, for your comments. Much appreciated. Viktor Frankl has been part of my life since at least 40 years. The knowledge of Viktor Frankl came to me through my youngest brother, who's very, very close to me. And since then, throughout the journey of my life, I have learned, the more I learn, the more it makes sense to me. And the more I try to live his teachings and attitude, the more I learn about attitude, it's incredible, because it is to do with everything in our lives. I would think to myself, even now when I walk out the door to go to work or to to see a patient or a client, I think to myself that what attitude, what am I taking? How am I showing up in the world today? How am I showing up with this person who is in need? And the same way when I speak to my family, it is so poignant to me to think, how am I showing up? What can they see about me? Because everything I think and feel and do, they know it's about my attitude. And it is so important that I always work on that, because I am far, far from being a perfect human being. And sometimes my attitude can come through as if, I don't want to be here. I don't like you. I don't want to do this. And even though I'm thinking it in my unconscious mind, it stands, everything I do then is coming from that place. So it is not an easy thing to do. And so thank you for that. But it is very, very close to my heart. And I try my best to not disappoint Frankl and his teachings.
Thank you. I'm sure he'd not be disappointed. As from all I know of you and about you, and from our time we spent together. So, but thanks for sharing your deep observations about attitude, as it is a core concept of logotherapy. So I think it's always worth taking a look at it. And thank you, Nancy, for your words. Are there any further questions or remarks that you want to make?
I have a question. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Francis. This was a wonderful presentation. Thank you. And I want to ask your opinion about this is sort of beyond the specific attitude, is more in general about logotherapy. I would love to hear your expert opinion on a question that always sort of I nurture within me, because I think that, as you point out, the message of logotherapy is so really universal, and the more I learn about, the more makes incredible sense to me universally across, human beings in any circumstance. So I wonder, in those situations when we encounter the human being go through, or do not have intellectual abilities to grasp this concept, to do the work. So I wonder how you think it's possible to explain or make accessible to human beings, no matter where they are. I'm thinking about severe intellectual disabilities, for example, that clearly they may not have really a sense of this concept, but also what I'm very curious about, those phases of life where, for example, again, on a neurological standpoint, there may be unconsciousness. And so there is, especially, the palliative care, end of life condition. I wonder, I always think about Frankl, about really bringing dignity, full dignity to human life always, even in those conditions where physically, although we are not our physical dimension, we are our spiritual one. And I wonder what you think, how you think could be in a way extended to those situations where life has meaning, even if until we live, until our body in a way is on earth, life has meaning, even if our mind may be completely shut off. And so, which brings my attention to all the dilemma about end of life, that is a very delicate. So I'd love to hear your opinion on that.
Thank you, Teresa. I appreciate the question. It's a complex, difficult question to answer. But the first thing that comes to mind is that no matter what a person is going through, no matter how ill, no matter what disorder or illness somebody has, whether they are beginning their lives or at the end of lives, we cannot give people meaning. We cannot we cannot, like Alex Vesti said this morning about his grandfather, I believe you cannot give somebody meaning. You have to live meaning. You have to be meaning. And that is our struggle. And we take ourselves with our attitudes, we take ourselves with our sense of meaning and purpose, and we take ourselves with a promise to ourselves every moment that I am going to be the best and most decent person that I can be. And you show up that way, and you transcend beyond your own pain and suffering to reach out to somebody, knowing that you are suffering yourself or you have pain and your experiences. And when you are doing the work to get through that, no matter how the other person is, what they're suffering, no matter how the intellectual disability is, they will feel it, they will see it, because beyond what we say and do is that nonverbal communication that is so potent and so important. And so we can extend ourselves that way. I work with a lot of intellectual disabilities and brain injury, and I find that when I'm seeing a patient in that condition or with that condition, I first of all go through a process of thanking God for everything I have, and for asking him to help me to show up with the best attitude, with the best energy that I can give to them, because that's the best I can do. I cannot give them, I cannot make them think meaning and purpose, but I can feel it, and I can be doing the work inside of myself all the time. And when I show up, I pray and hope that this is what I can impart to them, that I am there. And regardless of what I'm experiencing and feeling in my life, I'm reaching out beyond that. Because right now, in that moment, being with them is the most important thing. So I don't know if that answers your question.
Yes, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. We have another question in the chat. First of all, thank you for the great presentation, Dr. Francis. Can you comment on strategies to help align, recalibrate attitude in the midst of deep suffering?
Oh, what a great question. Another difficult question. And because of the kind of work I've been doing recently with sexual abuse and domestic violence, this is always a question. How do I present myself there so I can support somebody to manage and to deal with their suffering? And I've had some comments recently from my patients, and they have said to me, 2 in the last couple of weeks, and they both said the same thing. They said that we really appreciate you being human. We appreciate you being real. We appreciate you being authentic. And these words just grabbed my heart, because I just want to be real. I don't want to be something that I'm not. And I don't want to be telling them that something that is not true. I want to be listening, and I want to be there, and I want to be responding with the best possible and most sensitive and genuine response that I can.
Thank you. We have also Curtis commented, it seems that meaning can certainly be found and lived without finding expression in words or otherwise. In those moments, it might just be difficult to explain to another third party about the meaning in that case. If I interpret this, and I would think that this is, we can't give meaning because sometimes we are also lacking the words of even expressing how we find meaning. But maybe Curtis wants to comment on it himself.
Sure, yeah, this came from the conversation, Dr. Francis and Teresa, of this idea that so my background, I work with children, young children, and there's the argument that, well, why would you work anything around meaning with small children? They're not going to be able to express a meaning, or but that's not to say that they're not experiencing meaning in their life, in the moments of their life. And so when you see this process of meaning finding and meaning fulfilling from the outside, you might not necessarily be able to explain that without a third party saying, well, you're giving that meaning there, or you're putting that meaning there. And so this kind of the tricky part of like justifying your work, though we know and understand that there is meaning even for folks who can't express it.
So true. And I find that if we are really present with children, they will teach us what it is to have meaning, because they're the most genuine and the most authentic little people on the face of this earth. It's the children that teach you to be an adult. It's a child that teaches you to be a parent. Being a parent of 2 sons in their 40s and having 4 grandchildren, 3 and 1 on its way, I always listen, because I say to my grandkids, I'm no good at being a grandmother. You have to teach me what it is to mean to be a grandmother. So they are the most authentic, most wonderful people, and they'll tell you the truth every time.
Yeah, thank you. Are there any further observations or questions for Doreen?
Sabine.
Hi.
Hello. Yes, for Curtis, I work with children for 20 years, and today I am writing with my daughter a new collection, a children collection, for your question. And one way is to learn to teach the children to find other ways to solve problems. For example, for the bullying problem, they can make jokes or whatever with their own faults or whatever that caused the joke. Yes, for example, glasses. Then they can make a glass with spaghetti and joke to solve the bullying problem. Or, for example, in pandemic, we wrote a book that the main child learn to a new salute and go to teach it for her parents and her grandparents. It causes that the children go out of herself, and it is very important to attitude, no? Because the keeping myself is very dangerous in the teenage. Then it's an idea.
Thank you very much for that comment, Natalia.
Thank you. Yeah, we have time for one more question, I'd say, or one more remark or observation.
I would like to say something or ask something or observe something.
Great.
I recorded something, or I wrote down many very thought-provoking statements, but one that is very challenging to me right now is we are free to take responsibility, but not free from responsibility. I have spent the last 7 years in China and have just re-entering the small town that I grew up in. And And I'm really just sort of struggling to figure out how am I going to engage this community in a way that is that helps the community blossom. And you know, which is why I'm attending this session on attitude. I mean, I'm struggling. You know, what attitude, what posture should I have? How should I show up in the midst of my community? And anyway, but just the idea of freedom from responsibility. Is it incumbent upon someone who sees a need or who sees a condition to act? Freedom from responsibility. Is it possible to turn your back on something that you see?
What a great question. Fantastic question. Thank you, Roger. Short answer to that last piece, yes. Yes, you have a choice to turn your back. But under what is your intention? What is your motive? And so I'll just say that for food for thought. As far as taking responsibility, being free to take responsibility, or not taking responsibility, from the work you say you're doing, you have a certain attitude. You have a certain attitude of what you think about that work, what you think about the community, and what you think about the work that you need to do with this community. That is the first step, I think, in taking responsibility for that attitude. You think that you would love to work with this community because there's a need that you can fill. And you want to do the best you can with all the knowledge and experience that you have, and to be the most decent person that you can, to do the work with authenticity and with genuineness, and to communicate, to open up the communication, and to accept and to give, listening and speaking, and verbal communication and nonverbal communication. I think that's sort of the beginning of our work anyway. So if you have an attitude towards something like a project you want to do, it begins with, well, why do I want to do this? You know, what is the purpose of me doing this? What will I get out of it? So these are the questions you ask to develop that sense of what is your attitude towards it. And then once you decide that this is what you want to do, then you take responsibility for doing the best possible job you can do. And if you decide that you do not want to take responsibility for doing certain things that you ought to be doing, as Frankl says, then you are running away from the truth. You're running away from your responsibility, and you live in denial. And then your life, you experience what can be stagnation from growth.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for your great questions. And we are really on time perfectly. So I want to just take this as a quick reminder for all of you. If you want to stay in touch, if you want to discuss certain aspects further, there's always the networking opportunities we are providing throughout the Congress. So you can do an instant networking meeting, and it's in a way like speed dating as far as I understood it. So it's kind of fun, but you can also reach out directly to other attendees and maybe set up a little discussion. So you're more than invited to do so. And with this, I would close this session for now. And I'm very grateful, Dr. Doreen Francis, dear Doreen, for giving this wonderful presentation, and for all of you for your wonderful thoughts and questions. And I'm looking forward to see you in more sessions soon. So have a great day and have a good time. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone. And thank you for all the praise that you have sent my way. Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.